Hey guys, and welcome back to For I Have Sinned. My name is Jess,
And this is Lauren.
and we are back with 15-minute murder number 9.
Yeah.
And me and Lauren both have buns that are being hidden by our
Yeah.
backdrop.
Weird
So,
bun situations today.
so if you're watching us, don't get distracted by our buns, our disappearing
Hey.
and reappearing buns.
Check out our buns, guys.
Oh, um, Okay, so before we start, real quick, shout out to our newest patron, Josh.
Yes,
Thank
thank you,
you, Josh.
Josh.
That's awesome. And
He
Lauren,
came
you wanted to, oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah, he came over from our Facebook page, so thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.
And
And
then,
yeah,
yeah, I had one little shout out I wanted to give to Jojo, who messaged me and was like, hey, I'm really liking the show. He gave me a couple of ideas for maybe some future episodes. So thank you guys for supporting us.
yeah, thank you.
It's awesome.
Um, I think you go first this week, right?
I do. And I hate going first, actually. I don't know. It makes me
I
a
do
little nervous.
too.
Right? I feel like slightly unprepared. I don't know. So this week I am going to cover something that actually happened here locally in Tempe, which is where I live, which is right outside of Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay.
And this recently came back into the news because this person was just brought up on charges. So this is about a 46-year-old Uber driver named Rafaela Vasquez, who was recently indicted by a grand jury on August 27th, and she was charged in connection with the death of a 49-year-old pedestrian named Elaine Herzberg. So on this past Tuesday, September 15th, despite evidence showing that she was watching on her cell phone The Voice while sitting behind the wheel of one of those autonomous self-driving Uber cars that they had actually started putting out across the country, and she was supposed to be acting as the backup driver. So I guess the way that it was working was that they had Uber drivers that just kind of sat behind the wheel and they were supposed to be the backup, but they weren't actually driving. The car was driving itself.
So is it like a Tesla?
Yes, kind of like that. Yep.
Okay.
It wasn't a Tesla though. It was actually a Volvo.
Oh, okay.
Uh, and she pleaded not guilty despite this evidence to the negligent homicide charges, which is a fourth-degree felony. Um, so what happened was and this actually ended up kind of being a big thing locally because it was the first ever pedestrian that was killed by one of these autonomous cars, and essentially was the nail in the coffin for this program of the self-driving Uber cars.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it actually ended up being a pretty big deal. So this person, Rafaela Vasquez, was supposed to be the backup driver. She wasn't paying attention. She initially said that she wasn't distracted while she was being the backup driver, but evidence obviously came forward that she was. But evidence also came forward that she wasn't entirely to blame for this. So it gets kind of sketchy because there is some evidence that showed that the pedestrian actually wasn't crossing in a crosswalk, and she had a bicycle. She was walking it across the street. And they also tried to bring up the fact that she had methamphetamine in her system, which is kind of bullshit. It's just trying to make the victim look bad, basically.
Yeah.
But so it's kind of weird because like the Arizona Department of Transportation was supposed to have fulfilled some requirements on making sure it was safe, and kind of making sure that this self-driving car knew where all the crosswalks were and could also account for objects that were in the road and pedestrians. And
Right.
I guess they didn't exactly fulfill their end of that requirement. And it was also transferred to another county. So they actually took it out of Maricopa County and they transferred it over to Yavapai County. Um, and I guess they were trying to say that they didn't want to be involved because they had Maricopa County had participated in an Uber like safety course. So they were trying to say, oh, well, there's a conflict here. We don't want to deal with it. And they tried to push it onto somebody else. And the other county actually dropped the charges because they were going to bring up charges against Uber for this as well. The charges against Uber ended up being dropped, which is kind of bullshit because I do feel like Uber should assume at least some of the
Yeah.
responsibility for this woman. And they kind of just tried to pass the buck on this. They tried to say, oh, this woman had meth in her system and she didn't use a crosswalk. So what? That makes it okay that she was fucking killed by one of their self-driving cars?
Yeah. I mean,
So
come on.
I know. It's kind of bullshit. So it definitely was something that kind of, for lack of a better word, killed the autonomous car program. Um, and it really showed autonomous cars in a really bad light. So there was a lot of blowback because of that as well. So it ended up being this whole, actually, like majorly kind of political, and it spanned all the way to Silicon Valley, which is where these programs initially started, and they had
Yeah.
problems with the Teslas and blah blah. So basically, um, fuck self-driving cars. Also,
Yeah.
fuck Uber for many reasons, but
Yeah. More than one.
yeah,
No, but I've I don't like the idea of self-driving cars because it's just like for reasons like this, for one.
yeah.
I mean, I are we that lazy now that like we have to sit back and let our car drive us? You know what I mean?
Right. Well,
Like,
they were kind of like trying to tout it as being like, oh, well, this will help cut down on drunk drivers, but so will actual cars with actual drivers. I
right.
mean,
I mean, if you really want to cut down on drunk drivers, like put breathalyzers in cars then or something, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
and you can't like, is that a real thing? I've only seen this like in movies when or shows, like when somebody is like gets a DUE and then they have like the breathalyzer in their car and it
Yeah, it's called interlock.
oh,
Yep.
okay, so it is a
Yeah,
real thing. Okay.
it is. But if you have a passenger who
Yeah, yeah.
hasn't been drinking, or yeah, so there's ways around it. But yeah, interlock is actually a real thing. Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
Um yeah, I had no idea that was a real thing though.
It is. It is. It is.
Yeah.
So, they were kind of, so just to get back onto this case, they have a pretrial set for the end of next month. So this is pretty new that they've actually charged her with it. But they had evidence that the car detected the pedestrian 5.2 seconds before she was hit. And they're kind of trying to estimate that if Vasquez was paying attention and she wasn't watching The Voice on her cell phone, she could have stopped the car 42.6 feet before the impact is what they're estimating. And that's why she ended up being brought on the charges. So she's pleading not guilty despite all of this. And I will definitely keep an update on this, but I absolutely think that she should be held accountable.
Yeah. I mean, maybe don't watch The Voice while you're supposed to be a backup driver.
That's exactly it. Like that's totally against their policy. So
Yeah.
she was negligent 1,000%.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That is crazy. Jeez.
Yeah, it's kind of scary.
It's really scary because now it's like, what if there are people driving around in these Teslas and stuff like that, and then what if it fucks up and you don't even know what could happen, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and just take responsibility. I mean, yes, the car, and that was another thing. The car was supposed to have like an automatic braking system and it didn't.
Yeah,
So,
that's what I thought too.
yes, I left that out. Sorry. So they're all at fault. Even so is the state to some extent for not actually having everything updated with accurate locations of crosswalks and things of that nature as well.
Yeah. I mean, I know they do a ton of testing, but it's like maybe keep doing that testing like until you know that this cannot be an issue, like that it's impossible for that to be an issue, you know?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
I know. I mean, I don't know why I just got like a picture of like the Jetsons in my head, but
With the flying cars.
yeah,
Yeah.
we're headed there, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Uh, all right. Well, that was pretty crazy.
Yeah, so I'll keep you guys updated on that
When did
as
that
more details
happen?
emerge. So initially, it actually happened in March of 2018.
Oh,
So it actually has taken this long for them to, because they kept passing the buck. They kept trying to push it off to other people, and then they were. So it's honestly been a shit show, and it's kind of sad for her family, if she has any, that nobody wants to actually accept the responsibility for this woman's death, and they even tried to kind of pin it on her too for not using a crosswalk and having methamphetamines in her system. Like,
yeah, that's
it doesn't
bullshit. So
make her
that
to
means,
blame.
yeah, so
Yeah.
that means because she had meth, especially that, because of that, she should be hit by a car and killed.
Right.
Like,
She's partially to blame. Like, no, no.
no, no. Hi. All right. Well, mine is you might have heard of this. Um this is about Jesse Pomeroy, uh aka the Boston Boy Fiend.
Whoa,
Uh
no.
yeah. This one actually might be a little bit longer than 15 minutes, but we'll see. I can never tell with how much I write. Um okay, so Jesse Harding Pomeroy was born in 1859 in Charlestown, Massachusetts, to parents Thomas J. Do you hear the dog barking?
I do.
I'm just gonna go with it.
That's fine.
Anyway, uh, his parents were Thomas J. Pomeroy and Ruth Ann Brown. He had a brother, Charles, who was 2 years older. His father was a veteran of the Civil War and he became a dockyard worker. He was also an alcoholic. So Jesse was intelligent but awkward and had issues socializing with other children. He was big for his age. He had epileptic seizures and he was born with a whitish cataract like membrane over his right eye. So it
Whoa.
was just like a white eye. Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah. Uh, Pomeroy was also severely physically abused by his father from a young age. A punishment from his dad included being taken to the outhouse, stripped naked, and then being beaten with a belt until blood was drawn. And at 9 years old, Pomeroy killed his mother's songbirds by tearing their heads off. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. He was also caught torturing,
Torturing.
torturing. Wow. Uh, a neighbor's cat. He was caught torturing a neighbor's cat. Um, we know what happens when these types of kids start killing animals.
The McDonald triad.
Yep. So soon after, attacks on young boys started occurring in the area. They would be beaten with fists and most likely a belt. These boys were lured to a secluded area by an older boy. He would kind of promise like to see something really cool or, something like that. Um, so yeah, by a boy with slightly older boy with brown hair. Police posted a $500 reward, which at the time that was a lot of money, for any clue leading to the arrest of the criminal. On July 20th, 1872, Pomeroy received his most severe beating yet from his father. Ruth, his mother, had enough and she kicked Thomas out. She actually chased him out of the house with a knife, supposedly. I mean,
Oh,
who
wow.
really knows? This was so long ago. So a few days after that, her and her children moved to South Boston. My God, my accent today. South Boston. South
Boston.
Boston. Oh God. Um, yeah, so they moved to South Boston a few days later. Uh, And now, after that, attacks on young boys became frequent in South Boston. They were also more violent, and one boy was scratched with nails, stabbed with a needle, and bitten. Another boy was repeatedly stabbed with a pocket knife. Another had his face slashed, and his head was forced into salt water. One boy had his scalp slashed but then the attacker was startled by a group of people approaching and he fled. The attacker was described as a big boy with a milky eye.
Oh.
Yeah. Police toured Boston schools to identify the attacker, but somehow he was able to get out of that. I don't know if maybe he like fled the school or something. Well, I don't know. But then he ended up walking into the police station, but then he walked out, and one of the officers or one of the investigators spotted him, and he was arrested, and he spent the night in jail and was threatened with a 100-year prison sentence if he didn't cooperate. So he admitted his part in all of the attacks and was sent to the Westboro Boys Reform School until the age of 18. But he was released a year and a half into his sentencing.
Oh.
Yeah, due to good behavior and through efforts of his mother. So his mom was like pushing for him to get out. Like, I don't know what she was doing, but maybe she was.
Do you think she felt guilty for like?
I'm sure she did.
Yeah,
I
him
mean,
getting the shit beaten out of him.
yeah. But I mean, this is obviously an enabler as well. Like,
Sure.
I mean, he teared her fucking birds' heads off, for Christ's sake. That reminds me of Dumb and Dumber.
Oh my god. Pretty bird, pretty bird.
Our pets' heads are falling off. Oh god. So he was released only a year and a half into his sentencing. And then 6 weeks after his release, Pomeroy was working in his mother's shop when 10-year-old Katie Curran walked in asking if they carried notebooks. He told her to come down to the cellar to see if they had any left. Once there, he slashed her throat and he stabbed her repeatedly. He hid her body under a pile of ashes behind a water closet, and I had to look up what a water closet was because I was
Bathroom.
yeah, I didn't know
Yeah.
that. But like not really a bathroom. It's like, so in some bathrooms there's a separate little room that just has the toilet in it.
Yeah.
That's a water closet.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I was like,
Yep.
a water closet.
Oh yeah, my grandma actually used to sometimes call it like the WC. That's what they used to call like back in the day. She used to say like weird old timey shit.
My grandma totally does too. I'm surprised I never heard that one.
Yeah. Yep. Water
But
closet.
yeah. I guess a lot of stuff she says is like she pronounces just old school Brooklyn like Earl instead of
Oh
oil.
yeah, turlet instead of a
turlet.
toilet. Yeah.
So weird.
Oh yeah.
So weird.
I know.
Or like bottle instead of bottle.
Yes. Fat trees. Yep. Yep.
So yeah. So he hid her under a pile of ashes behind a water closet. And I wrote in parentheses, that's a room containing a flush toilet. Because I thought maybe it was like a water heater or so. I don't know what I thought, but whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, he then returned to work. In the following month, he again tried to lure young boys, but he could not convince any, or they were saved by people who knew his reputation. After the stabbing and mutilation of another young boy who was found in a salt marsh outside of the city, Pomeroy was arrested immediately. He confessed to police, but recanted after being assigned a lawyer. Ruth was forced to sell, the shop, which led to the discovery of Katie Curran's body. Pomeroy admitted to killing her only after investigators told him that his mother and brother would be arrested as accomplices. So there's a lot of trickery, but whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, do what you can to get him
Right.
to confess. In this case, I mean, there are other cases where people falsely confess because they're like
Pressured into it.
and like, questioned for 12 hours straight, whatever. Anyway, During his trial, his lawyer dropped the innocent plea to try and get him acquitted for insanity, of course, but the jury was not convinced. In February of 1875, Pomeroy was found guilty and sentenced to die by hanging, which was the only penalty for this charge at the time.
Oh,
So
wow.
he was like, I guess, 14, I want to say, at this time, 14 or 15. Um, yeah, so the execution was delayed for a year before eventually being commuted to life in solitary confinement after two governors would not sign the death warrant. For 41 years, Pomeroy's only interactions were with prison guards and Ruth, who visited him once a month until she died. I mean, this is a devoted mother. You know?
Right?
In 1917, Pomeroy was allowed to join the rest of the prison population. In 1929, he was moved to a prison farm due to his deteriorating health, and then he died from natural causes in 1932 at 72 years old. Um, he actually appears in the novel The Alienist by Caleb Carr. Have you heard of that? Because there's also a show.
No.
Yeah, it was. I have the book. I haven't read it yet. Um, and I've also seen that they made it into a show, but I haven't really watched it either. I think, what's that girl's name? Oh God, she was like a big child actor. Blonde, blue eyes, la, 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 Dakota something.
Fanning?
Yes, Dakota Fanning. I believe she's in the show. But anyway, so he also appears in the TNT television adaptation of The Alienist.
Okay.
And Law and Order SVU season 4, episode 25 was called Soulless, and that is inspired by Pomeroy. So yeah, that's mine.
That's crazy. I just happened to like look it up while you were like right after you said it because I had never heard of it. And he he's believed to be the youngest person convicted of first degree murder in
Yeah,
Massachusetts
yeah,
history.
yeah,
That's kind of crazy. And if you
yeah,
look at pictures of him, like when he's older, he looks creepy as fuck, man.
yeah. He does. I mean, when he's younger, there's only like a drawing of him or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, the older picture as he gets older, yeah, he's creepy as hell.
I almost wonder if, considering he was born in 1859, so like a long ass time ago, I almost wonder if that was like why his dad was so horrible to him because he was born with that, like he had the eye that was kind of deformed or whatever. And you know how people treat their children horribly,
Yeah,
especially many, many years ago back in the day, because they just hated them. They
yeah,
resented them not being normal. And it was always, I mean, that society then was very much like, keeping up with the Joneses, and you had to
yeah,
pretend everything was perfect and you didn't own your imperfections
yeah,
during that
yeah.
time.
And I mean, also science wasn't there yet with like explaining why, somebody had this
Sure.
disability or deformity or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely possible. And I mean, not to mention he was an alcoholic and
Yeah. Well, I just find it interesting that there was no like mention of his brother, who there was only a 2-year age difference, I believe, with them. His brother, I don't think, was abused by the father.
well, so I meant to say this, the father was abusive to the whole family, but
Okay.
more so to Jesse Pomeroy.
Okay.
Yeah. So
So
I'm
he got the
sure,
brunt of it.
yeah, and I'm sure it was also because, he was socially awkward and he
Sure.
didn't like sports, they said, and he kind of just read I think they said he read like it was maybe like pirate novels about like torture, and if he did play with any kids, like they would just play like I think it was Scouts and Indians,
Okay.
and uh, oh,
Ooh,
that was weird.
that was weird.
I think we're okay. Uh, sorry for those who are listening. We just kind of lost our feed for a second on video, but whatever. We're good now. Um, so yeah, I believe it was actually like scouts torturing Indian type stories that he was reading.
Of
So
course.
yeah, of course. So I mean, obviously, I think his upbringing had a lot to do with why he was the way that he was, but I mean, there could have been something else too. Who knows?
Oh, sure. It definitely seems that it was, excuse me, one of those like perfect storm situations where he
Yeah.
was already kind of at a disadvantage socially and maybe mentally as well. And
Yeah.
then his upbringing just brought out the worst.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yep. So that was mine. I've always wanted to do that one, but I decided to do it for a 15-minute because, it's an old case. There's not a ton of information.
Sure. Yep.
Um, oh, I wanted to tell everybody that we are going to start a new series called Local Lunatics.
Yes.
Yeah. Did we mention that in the group? I don't remember.
I think so. Not like an official announcement, but it was kind of an idea that, I had kind of thrown around and
Yeah.
you said you liked it too. And
Yeah.
we just hadn't gotten around to it. So in the discussion group for I Have Sinned Podcast Official, the Sinners Circle on Facebook, if you'd like to join us there,
Yeah.
we have been talking about doing local cases and
Yeah.
covering. So that's something we'll be.
Yeah, and I think that it'll be like Florida, Arizona, and New York, since we're both from New York. I feel like we should do that too.
Totally. And if
Yeah.
somebody has one that
Yeah.
happened locally that they would like us to cover, I had one of my buddies, Zach, actually had sent me one, which I did look into it, and it ended up being there was Investigation Discovery did like a show about it, and it is fucking weird. So I definitely would like to cover that as my first local lunatic for Zach, since he had asked me a while back to cover that one. So
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like Arizona and Florida are like weird ass places for murders.
so
and,
many.
and New York. I mean, New York
Yeah.
too, of course.
Yeah.
But I guess I don't know, we're talking about kind of doing it in the style that we do 15-minute murders, but like it'll probably be a little bit longer, um,
Yeah.
depending on the case. So yeah, if you guys have any cases that are local to you and you want us to cover it, either email us for ihavesinnedpod@gmail.com, message us on Facebook for I Have Sinned Podcast, or join our group for I Have Sinned official podcast. No, for I Have Sinned Podcast official group, the Sinner Circle. Is that it? Is that
Yes.
what it's
Just
called?
rolls right off the tongue,
Yeah.
really.
Oh Lord. And yeah, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube and leave us love, and subscribe to our Patreon, become a patron. Lots of cool stuff going on there. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I think my mom's changing a poopy diaper.
Oh, nice.
All right. Well, guys, until next time, stay safe.
Stay safe. Wash your
We gotta
hands.
figure out how to get
A
like
signal. We need a signal.
all right.
Stay
Well,
safe.
stay safe. Wash your
Wash your
hands.
hands. And don't kill
Don't
your
kill your
family.